When ChatGPT just exploded onto the scene, the headlines were, well, they were dramatic. The verdict seemed final. Google was finished. But here we are more than 2 years later. Did the giant actually fall? Let's follow the data and see what really happened to the king of search.
So let's start with the quote that set the tech world on fire back in early 2023. And this wasn't just some random hot take, right? This came from the guy who created Gmail. The message was crystal clear. A massive disruption was coming, and Google was at ground zero.
And, he wasn't the only one sounding the alarm. Tech experts, former Google execs, journalists, they all started echoing the same thing. It felt like, almost overnight, we were at the dawn of a totally new era for search, and the Google killer narrative was officially born.
The entire threat, the whole thing, it's centered on this one page. The SERP, the Search Engine Results page. For decades, Google's entire empire has been built on us clicking those blue links, and of course, the ads. The theory was simple. Why would you click through pages of links when a chatbot could just give you a perfect instant answer? No clicks means no ad revenue. And no ad revenue, well, that means no Google.
Seeing a massive opportunity, Microsoft went all in. They fused ChatGPT's tech into their long-suffering search engine, Bing, and basically declared that the search wars were back on. It was framed as this ultimate David versus Goliath rematch, and this time Microsoft was convinced it finally had the right slingshot.
So, the predictions were dramatic. The stakes were absolutely huge. But after nearly 2 years of nonstop hype, what do the numbers actually say? It's time to separate that hype from the hard reality.
So, the big question, did the empire actually collapse? Was the king of search dethroned?
Okay, by the end of 2024, this was Google's global search market share. So what's the big deal with this number? Well, for the first time in nearly a decade, Google dipped below that psychologically crucial 90% mark. So it definitely took a hit, but, this is hardly a collapse.
You can really see the story of that decline right here. Before this whole AI boom, Google was sitting pretty, way above 91%. By late 2024, it was fighting just to stay above 90. Now for a company that's used to absolute dominance, that's a real wound. It was more of a slow bleed, not that sudden knockout punch everyone was predicting.
And what about Microsoft's big move with Bing? I mean, despite packing it with all this cutting-edge AI, its market share, it barely budged. It went from a tiny slice of the pie to, well, a slightly less tiny slice. The revolution, it turns out, was not coming from Redmond.
But this story isn't just a simple two-horse race. While everyone was watching Google and Microsoft go at it, the real disruption was actually coming from somewhere else entirely. And at the same time, Google was getting ready to launch its own powerful counterattack. So while the giants were busy battling, a totally new breed of search engines started to emerge. And these weren't just old search tools with some AI features bolted on. Nope, they were built from the ground up to be AI native, designed from day one for conversational, direct answers.
And to see the scale of this shift, just look at a company like Perplexity AI. By early 2025, it was already handling 780 million queries in a single month. And its goal? 1 billion queries a week. This is where you can see the real user demand for a new kind of search just exploding.
Okay, now this is where the story gets really, really interesting. If you stop looking at the overall search market and you look only at this new AI search space, the picture completely flips on its head. In this new world, ChatGPT is the absolute giant, and Google, all of a sudden, it's a tiny player, with less than 6% of the traffic.
Of course, Google didn't just stand by and watch this happen. It launched a massive counteroffensive. First came its own chatbot, Bard, which we now know as Gemini. Then, and this is probably more important, it started weaving AI directly into its core search results, first with an experiment called SGE, and then evolving it into the AI overviews we see today. The strategy was pretty clear: adapt or die.
All right, so after all of that, let's take a step back and look at the final scorecard. Which of those initial, really dramatic predictions actually came true, and which ones were just pure hype?
This contrast tells the whole story, doesn't it? The analysts were right that Google's armor could be pierced, and they were right that new AI-native platforms would pop up, but they were dead wrong on the scale of the damage. Google didn't collapse, the results page didn't disappear, and Bing was never the major threat it was made out to be.
Okay, so we've moved from a simple monopoly to a much more fragmented world of search. But what does this new landscape actually mean for us, for the people using these tools every single day?
This sentiment from a user really captures the core tension of this new era. Sure, AI can give us instant answers, but a lot of people feel that the classic Google search page is now just cluttered with ads and, honestly, pretty low-quality AI content. It's become this classic trade-off. Do you want speed or do you want quality?
You know, maybe the biggest change is this. The whole idea of having one single search engine for everything is kind of fading. We now have a specialized toolkit. You might still use Google for broad discovery, then pivot to ChatGPT for a quick answer or to brainstorm something creative, and then maybe use a tool like Perplexity for deep, fact-checked research. It's all about using the right tool for the job.
So where does it all go from here? Well, experts pretty much see three potential futures. The first, and probably the most likely for now, is coexistence. But it's still possible Google figures out a way to perfect its hybrid model and retakes full control. And of course, there's always the wild card, the chance that a brand new player achieves a breakthrough and just changes everything all over again. The game is far from over.
So in the end, did ChatGPT kill Google? No, but it definitely wounded it changed it, and it forced it to evolve faster than ever before. What we're witnessing isn't a revolution, it's a very, very rapid evolution. Reports of Google's death, as Mark Twain might say, were greatly exaggerated.
And that leaves us with one final question to think about. We've traded a simple monopoly for this complex world full of choices. We have more power and more specialized tools, but we also have more noise and more confusion. So as this new landscape solidifies, the real question is a more complicated search world actually a better one? I guess that's what the next chapter of the search wars will decide.